Hello, Happy New Year. Welcome to our first HR Huddle of 2026. I'm Tamera Loerzel, and with me is my partner, Jennifer Wilson, and we are glad to be here. We were just saying it's good to be back from our holiday break, and we hope everybody enjoyed the season and got some time to be with family, friends, traditions, relax, rejuvenate, not have structure, come back to structure, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Have a schedule, have a calendar, have an alarm clock. I think all of that's good. But as Jen and I were discussing, and as we're re-entering here this Monday, we thought it might be a good topic for everybody to just kind of get centered and talk about reentry. And that probably looks different for everybody because your time off was probably different over the holidays, but there was some closure of, certain days, but maybe an extended leave. We closed for 2 weeks. So we were gone for 2 weeks. We closed on the 19th, and today's our first official day back. And we've gotten really good at closing down for the end of the year. And so we really do take time off and take time away from our laptops. There's a few things to wrap up for year end and payroll and those kinds of things, but mostly it's, no laptops and just really trying to stay away from our email and all of those things. But then coming back, there's a flurry of things that are happening. And so we just thought maybe we should step back and, look at, what are some ways that we can maybe be gentle with ourselves and maybe have some grace for ourselves and grace for our team and our clients, and say, how do we get centered, figure out our priorities, communicate those priorities as we come back and start this fresh new year. So I'll pause and see, Jen, what do you want to add to kind of that setup there?
Well, just that a new year is an opportunity for centering anyway.
Yes.
We all have to get recentered after time off, whether it happens over the holidays or whether it happens on vacation or whatever. But the new year brings with it an opportunity. And so we thought we'd also share some of our habits or things that we do to try to bring some longer range vision or planning or strategy to how we attack the year, and versus just I'm going to clean my email up, or something kind of tactical there.
Yes.
So the strategic part and the tactical, maybe, Tamara.
Yes. Yes. I think that's great. Well, maybe we start with a little bit of mindset and then we can get into the strategy and the tactical. I'm not sure, chicken and egg, because I got to figure out what's in my inbox to figure out strategy. But, there's also just some, like I said, some consideration for what, it's going to take to get our heads back into the game, figure out everybody's priorities and manage and communicate those priorities. Our families are dealing with whatever they're dealing with. Maybe you've got kids that are going back to school. I know my grandson was very upset that he was going to school and it was dark because Miss Tanya does not have class at night. So he was totally thrown off with his day this morning, arguing that it really wasn't time to get in the car and go to preschool. So you might have some of that going on or some feelings like that. And, there's also illness happening, flu-like illness, but other illnesses as well. And so managing that, or maybe recovering from that. So we're all coming from different places. I think that's what I want to say, is that we're all coming from different places, and we just kind of meet ourselves where we're at, meet each other where we're at, and figure it out and communicate about it, and not try to get it all done this first 24 hours. I think that would be my biggest, mindset, frame to have. Like we've got time, and so we got to figure out the priorities, like you said, Jen. But I think if we can come at it from, hey, let's just take a breath and pause and figure out where we are first and give the space to be able to do that. I think that's important.
Yeah. And I'm going to you use the word space. I'm going to use the word grace.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my 3 words for 2026, by the way, grace. It's also my middle daughter's name. She will feel very proud that that's one of my words. Probably I'll say it a lot this year. We've got to give ourselves grace for not coming in with everything we wanted to get done over the time off. And and not being necessarily able, as Tamara said, to get it all cleaned up and organized in one day. We also want to give others grace. We want to extend grace. People are trying to figure out where they are. So I experienced all kinds of different approaches to the day back today myself, and had at least one person pinging me for lots of stuff. That they were busy cleaning their list up or whatever, and doing lots of where is this, and when will I get this, and what is this, and it, we didn't have agreement, obviously, as we left about those dates. And so I totally get the desire to have it, but Monday back is not the day necessarily to start like poking other people. I think we got to give everybody a chance to recenter. So that's something, just a suggestion this week, a little bit of room and grace for wherever they are, as Tamara said, coming from different places. I like to come into the new year, if I can, and my work year with some guiding principles or guiding words. And I don't always get them. I've written about it in the past. I've been doing it a long, long time. Sometimes I get them right away. In this case, I got them right away. And sometimes I, have to like sit around and really work on generating them. They aren't obvious to me. But I really appreciate trying to figure out, what do I want more of in 2026 so I can focus on it and manifest it. And my 3 words this year are joy, grace, and courage. And joy's been one of my words a couple of times before, let's say in the 25-year history of our company. I did one year where I did a joy journey. And I wrote down every time I felt joy, I wrote it down. What was I doing? And I wanted to try to see if there were some common threads. And, like live music, by the way, is one of them. Things that I just really could appreciate. Many of us think that, we're trying to find a place where we are happy. I just want to be happy all the time. And that's not real. Life is not like that. And so you could say, I want more joy. Well, that's good. Let's generate more joy. But just recognize that joy comes in moments. What are those moments, and how can I appreciate them and really see them and realize them while they're happening, instead of reflect on them in the past? Those are good old times or whatever. So I'm going to go on another joy journey this year and keep track of what's giving me joy. My dad and I were together on the holidays, and we watched a bunch of movies. We tried to watch one a day, and some of those movies and his reaction and our participation in them and discussion afterwards were experiencing joy, so I'll just be writing that stuff down. What is it? What is it that caused it? Grace, I got to give myself that grace I talked about a moment ago. I'm not going to say more about it, but I personally give myself none. So I'm going to work really hard to give myself more, reality, instead of have such unrealistic expectations of self and disappointment. And it's not so much with others. I think it's really about myself. And then courage, just to face whatever's coming. So and some stuff will be coming. So that's a strategy that you could think of. What do I want more of? And could I give a few words? Some people choose one word. I've always chosen 3. It's hard for me to get to that one. Classic overachieving, perhaps, but that would be something we would suggest that you do as part of your centering to come back in reentry.
Well, and you can do it personally, Jen, like you just said, and we've done it as a team also, so we'll pick a word or 3. And sometimes it is just one word. I think one of our words was simplify. How do we just simplify what we're doing and our processes? Everything had a second look. So I think that's a great strategy, is to figure out what those cornerstone values or words, or like you said, what you want more of, and we can do it individually and as a team. And then I think we need to figure out priorities. And I think there's short-term priorities, and I don't mean 24-hour priorities. So there might be a couple urgent things I need to fix, but this quarter, what do we need to get done? This month, this quarter, like what do I need to be focusing on? And then communicating dates and, timelines and all of those things. But then I can stop and look, and what do I want to accomplish the first half of the year? maybe year long, and then what inside of that I want to get done for the first half of the year. Sometimes, the full year is a little bit more difficult. I might know a couple things, but what are our top 3 to 5 things that we want to make sure we accomplish? I know one of the things we've been working on is, speaking at different associations, for example, and getting really intentional and strategic. Like, what do we have so far? Where do we have relationships? Where are the new relationships? Divvying them up. Like, that's just an example, what there is. We've got some projects in the works before this peak period really fires up. What do we need to have done for that? And then what kind of planning? We'll use some of our quieter time, to do planning and prep for our spring season. And so I think that's helpful, just to get that organized and figure out what it is and then communicate it to probably more parties than we think needs to know about it. I was just having that conversation on the coaching call. And one of the things was, there's this perception out there that he wasn't managing. And it's like, I think communication and over communicating needs to be one of your mantras this year, because it's minimal of who needs to know it. But then I'm scrambling and, we're getting pinged and we're firing off communications and people are out of the loop and we have miscommunication or duplication or churn or all of that happening because I don't stop and communicate it. And I think that's a really good practice to get into and focus on, for the year. Start now. Look at what do I need to communicate about my current imminent priorities and then longer term strategies, and get input and buy-in and agreement on what those are, and then we can move forward, make actions, and create those timelines and due dates, and get going. So
I love it. I love all of that level of specificity, and I think without it, we might be too lofty and not specific enough to know exactly what we're trying to get done. And I was just thinking while you were talking about this idea of, like, what are we really going to accomplish? And for some of us, we can't even look at it as 2026 because it's too long a horizon. And so especially those who have tax peak period looming, and anything farther than that's too hard. And so I also think sometimes it helps to just break it down into quarters or break it down into thirds, and say, these are my top 3 things. This is my guiding word. This is what I'm going to do for this first third of the year or trimester or whatever. Yes. And that's another thought that I was having while you were talking, is that sometimes it can feel too big to plan for, or commit to, maybe. And also there's just going to be too much work through the system to feel like I could work on a lot of the proactive things I really want to set as my goals. I don't know if we've said it, I don't think we have, but another sort of centering exercise that I like to have people think about, and I just coached somebody on this today, is taking a time management course. And so, or reading a book, or doing a podcast, or reading an article, or, and we probably should put, Tamera, a link, we have some time management blogs that we've written in the past that talk about sort of distinguishing between urgent and important and some of those things. But, just, we all know time management, most of us anyway. Many of us have had some kind of time management exposure. They're teaching it in elementary school in some school districts these days, Covey stuff, which we think is amazing, and we hope the whole world gets exposed to it that way. But, just because we know it doesn't mean we do it. And for the most part, we pick up all kinds of bad habits. And most of us, the biggest bad habit we have is scrolling and, just being on the phone, being on our phone in some way. And if it's not on your phone, my laptop's just as insidious, but spending too much time on quadrant 3 or 4 items instead of working in the quadrant of proactivity. But there's all sorts of things in time management that are bigger and badder than that. There's all these cool methods for how to stay focused, There's something called the Pomodoro method, which sounds like a Italian sauce. It's also an Italian sauce, but it's called the Pomodoro method. And I think it's 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off. It could be 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, but I think it's 20. And you're supposed to just like do something for 20 minutes that you really want to get done, and then set a timer and stop, and give yourself 5 minutes off. And especially if it's one of those ugly projects that you don't want to start, if you say, I'm only going to have to do 20 minutes, then maybe you'll do it, and then you don't have to stop. But if you are sick of it, you stop for 5 minutes, then you go back. And you give yourself 5 minutes to scroll or to search through email or whatever it is that you would rather be doing. But there's all these time management strategies that can help us have a more productive, better year, end up with a better set of results day to day and week to week and month to month and overall for the year, because I managed my time better. My valuable resource that I waste. And I'm talking to myself more than I'm talking to you. So, but seriously, like what is it that I want to be sure I'm spending my time on? And how can I make time to do it?
Yeah. And we all have seasonality. We were talking about like tax season, and our HR professionals have annual or biannual review season, and we've got to do benefits at the end of the year, and 401k, and like there's seasonality no matter what discipline or department you're in. And so I think it's a good idea to figure out what those things are that are coming on a calendar, and then what else inside of that do we want to focus on and progress. I think that's one of the words I was using a lot at the end of the year, is what do we want to do to progress this? Because we think it's so big, we get frozen and we don't do anything. Like, what steps can we take, even during tax season, even during employee benefit plan audit season, even during review, performance review season? What are the other things that we can progress, and what steps, and who can take them? Because that's the other thing, is we can look for resources, and we all probably should leverage better and delegate and, find other people that could do them instead of us. I know we're talking to ourselves a lot in this HR huddle today. But I think that if you look at it from that way, you will also get more done. We'll achieve more, we'll include more, we'll be able to rally better. So, plot out the things we know are common. And then we can figure out, all right, what are the few, less than a handful, things that we're going to proactively progress? And what are we going to do to progress at each trimester or quarter, or however we break that down, whatever that looks like. So, and that's, and then you can figure out your flow time and some of those time management, techniques that you were talking about. I can schedule them. I can use my calendar. I can, submit to Microsoft Office's focus time and actually focus on some of those things. So if I know what those are, but I think that might be helpful also. There's things that we know, plug them in first, and then agree on what those proactive things are.
I love that, Tamera. And I was thinking when you were saying that, and you were like, oh, again, we're talking to ourselves. I heard the song, this is why we do it, baby. This is how we do it, baby. But I was thinking, this is why we do it. We're talking to ourselves. Hopefully some of this resonates with you for where you are as you come into this year. I mean, it's these are our challenges, and I'm sure you have some of them and can use some of these ideas. The reason we would try to get some stuff done during these peak periods, remain a tiny bit proactive, is because we never ever will get ahead or in the place where we are on it when we should be. We'll always be chasing it if we don't eke out minutes in the quadrant of proactivity where things are important but not urgent, where we are doing project planning, where we are doing some strategy, where we are going through the calendar review for the next 90 days, where we are working on something that isn't due to a client today, but is going to be, something we're going to need soon. And we will not get there if we don't do it. So it's just so important. The only other thing, Tamera, that really hit me about this reentry piece is, and Happy New Year, the Happy New Year piece, oh my gosh, it's a bright, new, shiny year, is just really thinking about how you want it to feel. Some of the guiding principles that I shared or some of the goals we may have could be about how it feels. And culture is the way it feels to work at your place or the way that it feels. But I want us to pay attention to that too. How do I want it to feel, and who do I have to be to generate that?
Mm-hmm.
Because what I want to get done, that's the what and the how and the action stuff, and we love that stuff. But who am I going to be while I'm doing it, and how's it going to feel for everybody? And what would we shift in the way that it feels this coming year? And would that inform our guiding principles? And should that inform some of our goals? And should that inform some of our behavior and mindset? And what habits do I need to practice or shift or change to make it feel more like that? And that's not necessarily just a self-reflection. How do I want it to feel? Especially if you're a key leader, but in HR, how do we want it to feel? How should it feel? How do our people want it to shift? What little shifts could we make as a leadership team to have it feel even better?
Yes. And how do your people want it to feel? Right? I mean, you said like we need to check in. And we always come back to check-ins, but how do they want it to feel? What would they like more of or less of in 2026? And how do we shape and accommodate that to our best of our abilities? And when we can't, share where we can't, but most of the time we can. And so that could help inform us and, make our commitments, centered around that in our team, in our clients. What do our clients need more of or want more of? And how do we have that front and center? What does that look like? So I love that. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
So, well, I hope some of these strategies helped. I think it helped us get centered. We probably should have done this huddle this morning at 8:00. But we're doing it here at the end of the day. It's a good centering technique for the end of the day. And we look forward to being with you on the HR huddles on Mondays through the rest of the year. So please join us, or you can catch the recordings in various social media outlets and YouTube. And let us know any topics you want us to explore or delve into as well. Please message us or, connect with us out in social media or email us. We would love to incorporate those ideas too. So thank you very much. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.